Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This video is about beginner's makeup and how to get into makeup initially. I feel like a lot of girls and women love to do makeup, love to get dressed for events, but they get a bit daunted by the experience of going out to shops, not knowing what they need. There's so many products out there. And not knowing what they really need to start off in the makeup world. I also feel like a lot of people are, on the day-to-day basis, are looking for natural makeup. They're looking for a natural way to enhance their own beauty. And I love that. I love natural makeup, and at the same time I love doing glam makeup. Because I love makeup, I love all the sides. Whereas on the day-to-day basis, somebody who's not a beauty freak, they just want to know how to do natural, simple, styled makeup. And what I did is I sort of thought right into my beginnings of doing my own face and doing my own makeup. And I thought, what were the things that I was using? What were the things that I liked using? What were the things that I felt I needed for the bare minimum face? And that is basically what I've stripped it down to today. I actually started wearing makeup quite late. Although I was always into beauty, I loved getting ready for events, I loved doing my hair. My mum and dad, they actually didn't let me wear makeup until very late, until I was like in my teens. And even then, the bare minimum that they would allow me to do was literally mascara and eyeliner. Eyeliner is a big thing in our culture, so eyeliner was always a thing. But, I was never really allowed to wear foundations. I never really had my own foundation until I was like 19, and I was in uni and one of my friends was like, wait, you don't have a foundation? What? I literally took me shopping. Because I always loved beauty, it was a good experience for me. It was like, wow, it kind of like opened up my eyes to this whole new world. But I can also see how that's very daunting for somebody, and I can also see how that would have been very daunting for me if I had gone by myself. But because I had a friend to take me and was, sort of advising me what I need, what I really don't need, it made it all easier. And I feel like we tend to not all have somebody like that in our lives. So this video is basically me being that friend and telling you the bare minimum things that you need to get a face and to get started in makeup. You don't need to go all out into the luxury brands. You don't need to go and spend a leg and an arm to get what you need. The drugstore is amazing, and actually in the last 5 years or so, I would say, the drugstore has become an amazing place for makeup. The quality of products have just drastically improved, and it's forever improving. And I feel like now we're seeing a lot of dupes videos, so people trying to find replacements for high-end products at the drugstore. You can go to Superdrug, you can go to Boots, and you can get, the bare minimum that you need, probably under 50 quid, easily. A lot of the time as well, these places are doing, offers. They're doing buy one get one half price, they're doing 3 for 2s, they're doing all these offers. So it's a really good start, I would say. Now the only thing that might prove a problem is the shade range. I know that drugstore, there's a long way to go along the whole of the beauty world in terms of shade ranges. But the drugstore, especially in stores, not all the stores are good at keeping a good range of foundations. But what you can do is you can sort of go and look, you can sort of go and test some products, you can go and test some shades, and then you can come back home, look online and see if there is a shade that might work better for you, and you can order it in to click and collect, or you can, order it for delivery. So there are ways around it. If you can't find your shade range, then unfortunately you will probably have to look into more of the high-end or luxury brands to see if they have got your shade range. But I really do hope that, I mean, this has been an ongoing conversation amongst in the beauty world for months and months and years now. I know there are brands that are bettering themselves and are putting out a good number of shades there, but I feel like there is still a lot of room for improvement. And also people who shade match at the counter. I feel like there's a lot more education that needs to be done. As soon as they see me, they can tell I'm Asian. So they kind of just typically go for the yellow undertoned foundations or the slightly more golden kind of undertone foundations. But I've actually realised over the years that I've got a bit of a green/olive undertone, and so I think we need a bit more education. Asians aren't all yellow undertoned. Some of them are pink undertoned, some of us are olive undertoned. So I think there needs to be a little bit more of education on that front too. The people that you are training to shade match, we need to do a better job at training them as well. One of the things that I didn't initially get at the beginning of starting makeup was actually a sponge, but I feel like once I got myself a beauty sponge, it made things a lot easier for me. Until you start using brushes and you kind of get the hang of using brushes and the technique of using brushes, sometimes you can be left with streak marks. So what I used to find was, because I wanted to learn how to use a brush, I would use my brush and until I got the technique right, I would use it, but I would kind of go over with my sponge. You can find ones from Elf as well that are really good. Eco Tools, Real Techniques, they do a great range of sponges and brushes for fairly affordable prices. They're slightly pricey, but you can get them on offer. I would say a beauty sponge is the way to start. The first thing that I would say that's really important is actually the preparation of your skin before putting any makeup on top. It's really important to moisturize, and I've recently started using SPF as well. Sun protection is a lot more important than we think. Also something that I wasn't taught at a young age, but you can see I've got a lot of scarring on my face because I've had a lot of breakouts from wearing masks, I think. But sun protection is important. If you're not wearing sun protection, those marks only get darker. And it also is good to protect your skin against UV for aging reasons, for skin cancer. There's a lot of things that we underestimate about the sun. It's amazing, it's brilliant for getting your vitamin D, but it's also important that we protect our skin, and especially if you're living in places like Australia. I know my sister for a fact doesn't wear SPF, and there is a hole in the ozone layer right above Australia, and you know, incidences of skin cancer and things in previous years' research, I don't know what it is like now, but it has been higher in places like Australia because the ozone layer is not protecting them as well. And make sure you are getting it everywhere, so all over your face. Bring it down to your neck. I do my neck separately, so but yes, do bring it down to your neck. So back in the day, like I said, this was literally my bare minimum makeup. I used to just wear eyeliner or kajal in my waterline and mascara. So I'm going to actually start off by doing that, because I know that a lot of people still wear eyeliner in their waterline. A lot of people still like to wear kajal, so that's how I'm going to start off. The other thing that I used to wear, that I still wear, and I've been wearing all through the years, even though it kind of went into remission, is actually lip gloss. So I used to wear lip gloss all the time, and I still do. I love the look of a good gloss, and I'm going to put this towards the end because I don't want it to interfere with some of the advice that I'm about to give you. Now, I do think it's really important to have a good foundation. Definitely get yourself shade matched, try a few shades, go into the store, swatch it, make sure that it's, you know, matching your skin tone. A lot of people used to tell me that your foundation needs to match your neck, but I found that actually no, because my neck is way lighter than my face, and so I used to always look very ashy, very grey, and actually you need to match the foundation to where you're going to put it, which is your face. So I always swatch it here now. I swatch it just against the bottom part of my chin, and then I'll kind of just blend it up and make sure that it's looking seamless. That's what you're looking for. You're making sure that it's looking seamless, and it's not sort of standing out. It's not looking grey, or it's not looking pink, or you know, you basically want it to really blend in. You don't want to see the foundation kind of standing out on your skin. The sponge has actually increased in size because I've wet it. So any beauty sponge that you buy, you should be using it damp. So you need to run it under some water and make sure you wring it out fully. But you do need to basically dampen your sponges. They work best when you've dampened them. So I'm just going to basically pump out on the back of my hand, like a pump, about that much to start off with. Start small, start little by little, and then you can build up. So that's what I do, and then I actually like to use my finger to kind of spread it out where I want the foundation, and then I can go in with my sponge to basically blend. So just got a palette here to use as my mirror as well. So obviously you should all be doing this in the mirror. That's something I don't need to say, right? But all you're doing with the sponge now is just basically lightly bouncing it on the skin, and you can see that it's just spreading it out, and it's spreading out the product, and it's kind of covering places where we had pigment. You can see it's kind of lightened the pigment. I don't mind that my scars peek through, but you can see that the foundation has definitely lightened some of that scarring. And it's super easy. That's literally it. Literally takes 2 seconds with a sponge. So yes, what I'm doing now is just bringing some of the rest of the product down the neck, because like I said, my neck is lighter, so you don't want my face to look way darker than my neck. So do bring whatever product, whatever foundation down to the neck as well, to make sure that it's just looking nicely blended and seamless. You can go in with more foundation if you want more of a coverage. The only thing about using the sponge is that yes, it does look seamless, but at the same time it also soaks up some of the product. So you can see that the sponge kind of has some of the product on the surface. Some of it is soaked up. You might need to go in with a bit more than you would need with a brush, because brushes don't really soak up the product. They just kind of blend it out where it is, whereas the sponges kind of pick up some of the product, and it kind of absorbs it, which is why it does give you such a flawless, seamless finish actually. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of extra to show you that you can build up the coverage. So I'm actually going to go in with a brush to show you that you can do your foundation with a brush as well. So I like to use a densely packed brush. This is from Eco Tools, and this brush is quite handy. It kind of does the work of a sponge because it's so densely packed, but it's very seamless in the way it blends. And I just like to stamp it around first before I go in and just slightly kind of drag and blend. And you can also pick up the product with your brush as well and do the same thing. Okay, so that's how you would blend with the brush. Just gonna go in with the sponge again as well to show you again. Just make sure that you're really kind of getting into all the places that you want the product. Make sure it's in your hairline as well. And like I said, down the neck again. And that's it. So that's your foundation done. And you can see it's covered up a lot of my pigment. It's covered up, you know, a lot of the scars that I had, and it's made my skin tone look really nice and even. Some people have a bit of darkness under their eyes, which you can't really tell on my camera here, and I have kind of put foundation there, so it's kind of lightened up my eye bags. But if you have got darkness here, and I think to begin with it's a good idea to just stick to foundation, and a good coverage foundation, so medium or, you know, full coverage foundation, and to use the foundation under your eyes as well. I feel like sometimes that's the way that you're going to get a more natural way of making the face look seamless instead of going in with concealer. Now I've still got a bit of product left on my hand here, and what you need is kind of like a dense brush. Now this one's from Real Techniques, and I don't know if it is marketed as a concealer brush, but it's a really good, it's also a really good concealer brush, but it's really good for getting into this area, because this area of our eye is quite small. Under our eye is quite a small area, so you need a kind of small packed brush to get into the places that you want. It's also a good idea to have a brush like this if you want to go in and make sure that some of your scarring, I can still see some scarring here. If I wanted to cover that scarring up a bit more, it's nice to use a densely packed brush to go into just on top of those scars and add a bit more product there and just kind of stamp it in and blend it in. Now I'm not going to do that today because like I said, I don't mind my scars being seen. My skin tone looks even, I look good, I'm happy to look like this. I don't need you know, a full cake on at the moment, and I do like a cake on sometimes. Sometimes I like to cover it fully, but sometimes I don't. I have spots, I get spots, we all get spots, we all get scars. So I'm happy to show them. I don't feel like I really need to cover them up all the time. So I'm just going to take my brush and basically just grab a bit of the product there, and just looking into my mirror, I'm going to go in under here, under the eye, and I'm just going to add a bit more product there. And you can see what I'm doing, I'm kind of stamping and dragging at the same time so that I can really put the product where I want it. Okay, now once I've got the product where I want it, I'm just going to lightly tap it in. So you can see I'm doing a lot of bouncing motion, so I'm just lightly tapping it in. And when I've tapped it into this area, because that's the area where you've got the most darkness usually, if you've got bags and things, you'll notice that it's this inner corner area where you'd get a lot of darkness. But I do want the product to kind of just blend seamlessly across, so I'm going to just lightly feather the brush and bring the product across. Just to further blend it out. And that's it. So you can see I've still got a bit of the darkness peeking through. It hasn't completely covered it up, and foundation won't, because the pigment that you get in concealer is a lot thicker. But foundation, I think for a natural kind of everyday makeup look, I think it's sufficient enough. It does the job for me. Again, it also depends how dark your under eyes are. If you have really bad dark circles, then you might want to go in with concealer. But if you've got just kind of a bit of darkness there from, you know, not sleeping or whatever, and you want to give a bit of coverage to it but still look natural, you can still use your foundation there, is what I'm trying to say. So we're just going to do the same thing and go across here to the other eye. Like I said, I'm just putting the product where I want it. That's it, there we have it. That's all done. Now you can again use a sponge and it would look more seamless, but the coverage that you would get from the sponge would be slightly less, which is why I went for the brush. But you can basically use your sponge, you can pinch it, go in with some product right at the tip of the sponge, and then basically go in under your eyes and add product there. It's also helpful to look up when you're doing this so that you've not got any sort of foldings or creases under your eye. And there you go. That should look really, really seamless under the eyes. Now this is a good time to point out why I stopped wearing inner waterline eyeliner or kajal all the time, and it is because it kind of closes up your eyes. It makes your eyes look a bit smaller, and it can, if you've already got dark circles under your eyes, it can enhance your dark circles to look a lot worse. So I don't put eyeliner in my bottom waterline all the time. I do sometimes if I'm doing cultural shows, if I'm doing going to the temple and I just want a little bit of something, or if I do want to give definition to that bottom line waterline intentionally, then I will go in with eyeliner. But on a day-to-day basis, I tend not to. I tend not to wear any eyeliner underneath. Now I've still got a bit of product on the back of my hand, so I'm just going to use it up on some of my scarring down here and just go in around my mouth. Now the next thing that I think you need, that I didn't really pay attention to, or I didn't really kind of go out of my way to get, is a setting powder, and one that has a bit of a colour to it, or a shade to it, that matches your skin tone, because it adds a little bit more coverage, not a lot because it's not a powder foundation, but it just kind of smooths over and basically evens out your tone a bit more as you're adding the powder. Now the reason why it's important to add some powder is because you want to settle this cream in place. You don't want it to move across, especially as we're wearing masks now. You don't want it to, you know, kind of get dragged across, and it should just help to cover some of your scars and things a little bit better and mask them a bit better if you want it to. Now there's two ways that you can go in with your setting powder. You can use quite a kind of soft, it's not really dense brush to apply the powder, or you can go in with a dense kind of kabuki brush. This is pretty dense, and this one is from the Body Shop. I don't know if they sell it anymore, unfortunately, But you can find a lot of brushes like this online, anywhere really. Elf has a lot of good brushes. Real Techniques is another good brand. But yes, so this one you can see it's got a bit more fluff to it. It's not really as dense as this one. So you can see as I'm kind of pressing my finger on top, it's pretty dense there. One thing that I would say about using this brush is to not use this brush under the eyes, because it can pack the product there a bit too much. It can look a bit cakey. So I always tend to go in with this kind of a less dense brush, face brush for under the eyes, and you can see it's slightly kind of got a dome to it. It's a little bit pointy at the top, and that just tends to fit pretty nicely just under the eyes as well. So you just pick up a little bit of product, not much, just coat your brush. Make sure you get rid of any excess by tapping. And then look into your mirror, and you just want to go in right under the eye and just kind of stamp it in first. And then you can kind of just lightly brush it away. Okay, and you do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just coating my brush, tapping off the excess, and then again you look in and you just place the product where you want it initially. And then you just lightly brush it away. And I do kind of just push it in the middle of my forehead, in my T-zone, and on my chin, because I've got dry skin. I don't want too much product there, because it can tend to look a bit dry and cakey. So I just go with whatever's left on the brush into, this is your T-zone, so it's basically a T, so into my T-zone. Now I will go in with my dense kabuki brush as well, and you just do the same thing. You pick up some product, you can see there it's pretty dense. You tap off the excess. Not much will come off of this one because it's pretty dense. It kind of holds on to the majority of the product. And then you just need to stamp it in where you want to set. So I like to set the rest of my face pretty much, so I will stamp it in into my smile lines here, on the side of my nose. Basically everywhere else that I haven't powdered yet, I just stamp it in. You can see all the product's gone there. Pick up more product, tap off some of the excess. Not a lot will come off, like I said, and then stamp it where you want it. You can see it's adding a little bit more coverage. It's evening the skin tone out a bit more, but it's not really, you know, doing a whole lot in terms of completely covering up the scars and things. You can still see my scars there. And I like to set what's on my neck as well. And just getting whatever's left on the brush onto the forehead as well. Now the next stage is to go in with bronzing powder. Now bronzing powder basically adds a bit of dimension back to your face. It's a brown kind of powder. You can get different undertones in bronzing powders. You can get some that are more red toned, some that are more orange toned. To stay safe, I would say go for one that looks a bit more browner than anything else initially. Once you kind of learn more about your skin tone and your undertone, then you can kind of pick if there is an undertone of the bronzer that you want to go for. But to stay safe, I would say just go for a bog standard kind of brown toned bronzer initially. And what it does is, it's not a contour, it doesn't sculpt your face. but it will give your face dimension. Now, by adding the foundation and the setting powder, you can see my face is looking a bit flat. We've evened out the skin tone. Yes, you can still see my pigment and scars, but the majority of the face looks evened out and it's flat. Now, nobody has flat skin. Nobody has no dimension to their skin. We have areas of our skin naturally where if you were to go out into the sun, it looks more tanned, it looks more bronzed, it looks a bit more glowed. So we're basically trying to add that back in makeup. So now the kind of brush that you need for bronzer is basically, I like to use, everybody's different, people have different techniques of bronzing, but I like to use a slightly domed kind of brush. It's not dense, it's not a kabuki brush like the one I showed you from the Body Shop. It's not dense like this. It's a little bit looser, it's got more movement, but I like to use this because I find that it helps to keep the placement a bit more precise. Some people like to go with bronzer all over and they like to use a nice loose brush to kind of really spread the product out. But I think when you're starting off initially with makeup, it's easier to use something that's a bit more pinpointed and a bit more kind of directed where you want the product to be. So with the bronzing powder, you want to go into your perimeters of the face, basically. So you want to go into the forehead here, you want to come down, you want to go into the hollows of your cheek. So you've got your cheekbones, my cheekbones are up here, and then you come off of the cheekbones and you can feel where it kind of digs in. That's where you kind of want the bronzing to go. So you can see as I'm pressing down, that's actually where my cheekbone is. You can see my finger kind of pushing in. Or if you're sucked in, you can also see where your cheekbones are. So you want the bronzer to kind of go in this region here. And then you can also bring it down under the neck as well, and under the chin and down the neck as well. So you basically just pick up a bit of product, tap off the excess. With powders, always tap off the excess. And then you just go in, and like I said, I like to stamp first, so you can see it's adding a bit of brown there. I like to stamp the product in, and then I like to kind of buff and swirl. And make sure it's right in the hairline, because you don't want any kind of separation between this area and your kind of scalp skin. So you want it to really look blended in. You don't want like a line where there's no product. So make sure it's really in there. So pull your hair back if you can and kind of really get in there. You need to pick up more product. So know that one kind of application will only take you so far. You will have to keep dipping back into your products. Tap off the excess, and now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go into the hollows of my cheeks. And again, I'm stamping the product. And then the soft, it's really, really soft. I'm just gently kind of buffing it so that it looks nicely blended. And then stamping that product in again. Now you can kind of see there's a bit of a shadow there. It's looking a bit sculpted. In comparison to this side. So I'm going to pick up more product and go in on the other side. Make sure both sides are even. So this side is looking like a bit more product was added there. So I'm just going to go in with a slight bit more on this side to make sure it's all nice and even. There you go. So now it's looking a bit more even. There we go. And then you want to go along the chin line here, and it just brings out your chin slightly more, makes it look a little bit more prominent, but in a not as scary way as contour would. Okay, make sure it's really blended. And then you can bring your bronzer down your neck as well to just make sure everything is looking nice and seamless. So now here is the bronzer that's all done. What I used to like to do is kind of bring this onto the apples of my cheeks as well. Just here slightly, to kind of bring a bit of colour. I never used to wear blush because I was always intimidated by blush. But I used to bring a bit of the bronzer just across my cheeks. But if there's one thing that I would change, I wish I would have gone for blush a lot sooner, because now I love blush and I'm not as intimidated by it. Blushes can be a bit scary. They're quite bright in the colours that they put them out in, and rightly so, because they need to be pigmented to kind of show up. But yes, I used to be intimidated by blush, so I never used to really go for it. But I used to bring my bronzer kind of slightly down into my cheeks. The other thing that I also used to do with my bronzer is I actually used to use it as eyeshadow. I used to bring it into my crease here a bit. So you just can get any eyeshadow brush. It doesn't have to be, it can be a really fluffy one. It can be kind of slanted like this. Let me kind of find one to show. So yes, it can be kind of like domed like this and really fluffy, or it can be shaped like this, angled. Whatever you prefer. It's easier, it's quite easy to find eyeshadow brushes like this, so I'm going to use this one to show you. But all you do is just go in with a bit of the product, tap off any of the excess from the powder from the brush. You kind of just look down into the mirror, and you just add a bit where your eye kind of pushes back. And that again just adds a bit of dimension to your face. And it doesn't have to be accurate, it doesn't need to be precise, because bronzer, the powder, you know, it's quite close to your skin tone usually. It's brown, it's not that intimidating to kind of be messy about it. So be messy, get in there, just where your eye pushes back. When you open your eyes, you've got folds in your eyes, but when you look down, you should be able to see kind of where it pushes back into the bone. And you just add the product there. And you just go in circular motions and just kind of, I call this wind swiper motions, and circular motions is basically going round and round. Wind swiper motions is probably the easiest to kind of get the hang of initially. So you can just do wind swiper motions like this. And you can see it's just adding a bit of the brown colour there into the fold of my eye. And I used to add a little bit right in this outer third of the eye, not in the third, like the outer quarter of the eye. Right here, and it just gives a bit more dimension to the eye. It gives a bit more shape to the eye and just doesn't allow it to look flat. Now, beginner's eye makeup or beginner's eyeshadow is a complete different video. It's a complete different story. It's a bit more involved, there's a few more brushes involved, so it might be a different video that I do that in. But to get us started with our eye shape and finding our eye shape, it's always a good idea to go in with bronzer. And again, I'm just gonna go on the other side as well, just this outer third here. And that's done. Now, if you're just using an eyeshadow brush for the bronzer to bronze, to put a bit of colour into your eyes, you can also use this to shape your nose. So you just get a bit more powder on the brush, make sure to tap off the excess, and you just trace the bridge of your nose down the side so that it doesn't look as flat, and you're giving it a bit more shape. So just gently caress the side of your nose there. You can see it kind of brings that forward. And I like to kind of bring it up here as well. Do the same thing on the other side. And just under. You can see it just kind of brings the nose slightly more prominent, a bit more shape, doesn't look as flat. And especially if you're going somewhere that's taking pictures, you don't want your nose to kind of be blanked out like Voldemort. So just add a little bit of the shadowing, a bit of the bronzer on the sides of your nose there. The next thing that you want to go in with is highlighter. So highlighter is basically a glowy powder that adds a little bit of sheen or a little bit of glow back into the face. And sometimes when you've put the powder, when you've put the setting powder, bronzing powder and things, it can look a bit kind of matte, still a bit lifeless like. So it's nice to add a little bit of a glow. And the kind of brush that you want to use with this initially when you start off is kind of like a fanned brush, because this diffusely applies the product into the areas that you want. It kind of seamlessly blends it out, I think, which is why a lot of people start with a fan brush. As you progress and things, you can use more smaller brushes, more pinpointed brushes, but to start off with, I would say a fan brush is the way to go. And the areas that you want to look for when you're applying your highlighter is basically if you went out on a hot day, where would you get kind of glowy, and where do you look a bit kind of, not sweaty, but a bit like your sweat's coming through and a bit glowy. You tend to kind of notice the kind of high points of people's faces. So this kind of C shape here, down the tops of your faces, down the bridge of the nose. Now, depending on your nose shape, some people try it. If it looks nice on you, do it. But do be careful. I usually just go for the middle bit because I find that's the safest option. So just the middle bit here of your nose, the bridge of your nose. Sometimes I like to go for my chin as well with whatever's left over on the brush, just to give it a bit more of that glow. So again, you just dip the brush into the powder, tap off the excess. Sometimes you'll see some like glitters and things fly off, and then you just lightly apply on the tops of your face and down in that kind of C shape. And you can see there's a lot of glow there. Do the same thing to the other side. And I just like to go with whatever's left over down the bridge of my nose and on to the chin there as well, with whatever's left on the brush. It's just quite nice to add a bit of glow there for me, I think. they're looking nice and glowy. But if I looked a bit close up, you can see that the powder is kind of sitting on top. Now all you need to do to kind of mesh that in is go back in with your sponge and just gently tap it in, and it just looks all that more natural and kind of just nicely meshed in to your skin, and kind of looks part of your skin instead of looking like it's just kind of hanging around on top. Now the last thing to do is your lips basically, and anytime you're wanting to look more natural, it's the safest option is to go with something that's kind of closely matched to your lips, but sometimes we can mix it up with the colours on our lips and it looks nice with this kind of face makeup. You can go for a pink colour, you can go for reds with this face, you can go for any lipstick or lip colour that you like. But if we're still keeping to the theme of still looking natural but done up, then I would say go for kind of a brown colour. Now when I say brown colour, mine's kind of automatically go to lipsticks. Lipsticks have been around for years and they're, you know, one of the most long-standing things. I think it's the kind of product that we go for as kids as well. From our mum's purses, we go for the lipstick. But actually, I would say something that's more versatile than lipsticks, lip liners, because you can do so many things with them. Not only does it add dimension to your lips and things like that, but you can kind of go for different colours. You can fill it in completely to look like a lipstick, to look like it's filled in. You can just lightly define the edges of your lips and then go in with gloss for it to look more natural, or you can, you know, fully fill it in then go in with gloss. But lip liners last longer on the lips as well, and I think they're just a bit more versatile to have in your purse initially than a lipstick. So I've got two types of browns here, one slightly darker and one slightly lighter, as a lighter brown. This kind of matches my skin tone and my lip colour quite well, whereas this will give you more of an outline. So I'm going to go in with this colour here, the lighter brown, to show you. And all you're doing is basically tracing the edges of your lips basically. So you just look in the mirror, and where you can see the outlines of your lips, just add some product there and draw. It's quite hard to do this talking at the same time. So you can see I've added an outline to my lips. You can also go in with the same colour and just basically fully fill it in. And you know, you can see you've got a light colour there, and my lips look all evened out. Now if I could go in with a gloss on top of this as well, it would look natural, it would look nice. But you can also go in with something darker, so I'll show you with the darker lip liner as well. And that kind of just makes the outlines of your lips really stand out. You can then fill it in as well, but it all depends on the kind of look that you're going for. So you can see the darker brown has kind of outlined the lips, given it some shape. And again, if I wanted to go in with the darker brown completely and fill it in, it would just look like a dark brown kind of lipstick really. But it's quite handy to have a brown lip liner as well, because you do want to sometimes give your lips an outline, you want to give them a bit of dimension, you want to give it a bit of shape. So a brown lip liner, I would say it's great. You can go for other colour lip liners as well, pink, red, whatever. You know, if you've got a red lipstick that you'd like to wear but you want to outline the lips, go for a red one. Like I said, you can go in with a gloss at this point as well. And I love glosses because I get really dry lips, I have really dry skin, and the gloss kind of just meshes everything in together. You look done, but not, you know, too crazy, we're not wearing too many crazy colours. It's a safe option. Now, this is pretty much done. You could go out like this, you would look beautiful, you'd look like yourself. You still can see your skin, it's looking natural, but you're looking done up. But like I said before, I wish that I had started using blush earlier, because I just think it looks more youthful, it adds a bit of colour to your face. Right now I'm looking bronzed and there is colour to my face, but blush just somehow kind of completes the makeup look, I think. And you don't need to go for a huge blush palette or anything like this at all. You can just buy a single blush, whatever colour you think you like. But going for a blush palette is quite nice, I think, because you've got a couple of colours that you can try, that you can try to see what suits your skin better, your skin tone better, what colour suits your undertone better. You can mix the colours to come up with your own shade. So having a blush palette is quite handy, I would say. So if you can get a blush palette, I would. The kind of brush that you kind of need for blush is one that's really not dense, quite fluffy, doesn't have a lot of you know, bristles in it. It's got a lot of movement, a lot of give. You can see out of all the brushes we've used today, this is probably the most loosest one, but that's what kind of spreads the pigment in blushes the best, I've found. Sometimes when you go in with too dense of a brush, it's then hard to blend out. You put too much of the pink or, you know, whatever blush colour that you're wearing in one spot, and then it's hard to diffuse it out to the rest of the face. So go in with a really, really fluffy brush. Now I'm gonna go in with this shade here, kind of like a peach colour, and get a bit on your brush. With every product, like I say, always tap off the excess. Oh, you can see the pink coming off there, so yeah, really tap off the excess because you don't want to apply too much in one go. And then you just, again, same technique that I've been doing with the other brushes, you stamp where you want it. So you want it right on the apples of your cheek here. That's where the apples of your cheek are. So if you smile, you can see that kind of lifts up. So that area where it lifts up, that's where you want the blush. So you stamp it there, and then you blend it, you diffuse it with the rest of your face, with the bronzer, with the highlight, and you can, there you go. So it looks nicely meshed in. And again, tap off all the excess, you don't want too much, and smile to find the apples of your cheeks, stamp it where you want it, and then blend. Now, if you feel like you've gone in too hard with the pink, with the blush, go back to your trusty sponge. So this is why it's nice to have a sponge as a beginner's makeup, getting, you know, into makeup initially, because this is really good for picking up extra kind of excess product that you don't want on the skin. So again, you just go over the blush and you should be able to diffuse the colour nicely, and it should pick up some of that extra product. And really kind of just blend it out to how you want it. The other thing that you can do if you feel like you've still gone in quite hard with the blush is get your setting powder brush that you used, get some of the setting powder and just go over the top with the powder. And that should really kind of mesh things together, tone it down a bit. think I went a bit too hard on this side, got a bit excited. So yeah, you can really use the setting powder to blend out the blush, and you can see it's toned down and everything's looking nice and meshed in. Right, so that's all done for this video. We're all done. This is the finished look here. Now you can still see, like I said, it's a very natural look. It's the bare minimum of what you need to wear makeup, start wearing makeup, but still look like yourself, be confident, you know, look natural as possible. So yeah, these are all the bare minimum steps, the bare minimum products that you need to start your makeup journey. If there's anything that you've got a doubt about, if there's anything that you want more clarification on, if there's anything that you want to see next on this channel, so how to do eyes or beginner's eyes, eye makeup, just leave it down in the comments below and I will read them, and I will make sure to have a video up about what you're requesting. But yeah, so let me know how it goes. Let me know how you found this video. Let me know how you feel after doing your face. I do hope that all of you watching have a lovely, lovely day. Have a lovely month ahead. Stay happy and healthy. We are still amongst among a pandemic, and we are still, you know, wearing our masks, taking care of our health and things like that. But hopefully 2022 will bring us some brighter days. We'll be able to travel more, we'll be able to see our families more, and you know, just carry on with our normal lives as we knew it. But yes, I hope that 2022 brings all you guys a good year, lots of good luck, and do let the light in. Always let the light in.